Nagarajan. I'm a second-year student at MIT Sloan. I'm thrilled to introduce our next competitive advantage talk. Speakers are Sean Foley, a professional golf coach, and Mark Broadie from Columbia Business School. The talk is titled Every Shot Counts, Using Analytics to Improve Golf Performance. The talk will run 25 minutes. We'll leave 5 minutes for Q&A. With that, I'll turn it over to Sean and Mark.
Thanks, Arvind. So Sean and I are going to talk about golf analytics. And I'm from Columbia Business School, and you probably all know Sean Foley.
I barely made it through school.
So I want to attack we only have a few minutes, so I wanted to attack one of the biggest, what I think is misconceptions in golf. Conventional wisdom that putting is the most important part of the game. And what do I mean by most important? It's the number of shots that separates the winner of a tournament from everybody else, or from the best players, from the average players, or between amateurs and pros. So this goes way back. You drive for show, but putt for dough. It's attributed to Bobby Locke. And so that's a statement about golf in general, but Jeff Ogilvy, who won the US Open, said the biggest reason Tiger is the best is because he putts the best. And the question is this true? What is this feeling? What are these beliefs based on? Is it really true that putting explains more of scoring differences among pros? And is putting really the key to Tiger's success like many people believe? So if you want to talk about the long game versus the short game, these shots that you want to try and hit 300 or more yards versus something that requires a lot of touch like putting, the long game you kind of think of John Daly. So he's the prototypical long hitter. And what's not widely known is where did he get his golf swing from? Who did he model this after? Well, there's, back in the Stone Age, there was Fred Flintstone, and just the, so that's where John Daly got his golf swing. So this is where golf started, but what about golf performance measurement? Well, after Fred and Barney were done their round, they retired back to the cave, and they recorded fairways, greens, and putts. And this has been basically since the Stone Age, this is how golf performance has been measured. You can count. It's easy to do because you can count these things. How well does counting work? Well, if you take a look at putts per round, which is this traditional stat that's been around for decades, to try and calibrate this, the PGA Tour average is 29 putts per round. The leader in 2013 was Brian Gay at 27 and a half. And let's take one particular round when, in 2011, Tiger Woods in the first round of the Fries.com took 27 putts. And this is clearly a setup here. Was this a good or a poor putting round, right? Better than the average, better than the leader in 2013. What do you think? So Tiger said, after this round, I can't putt the ball any worse than I did today, one of the worst putting rounds I've ever had. He understood how well he was putting, much better than this stat of 27 putts said. And why did he say that? Well, he only made one putt from outside of 6 feet. So I'm going to talk about the strokes gained putting measure, where he lost 1.3 strokes to the field on his putting, and he ranked 101st out of 132 players. So this accurately reflected what Tiger Woods already knew, but what the traditional putting stats didn't say. So how can you do this? How can you bring golf statistics from the Stone Age into kind of the modern era? The main thing that you need is data. And what we have now, thanks to the PGA Tour and their technology partner CDW, is shot-level data. Where does every shot start, and where does every shot finish? 300 volunteers are at each tournament collecting this data, so it's a massive undertaking. There's my son Daniel at a ShotLink tower with a laser, and then the data goes back into this trailer where they have racks of servers, and they record shots to 1 foot accuracy out on the course, and then on the putting greens, it's about 1 inch accuracy. So it's a database of 11 million shots since 2003. So how can you use this to measure putting better? Well, counting putts is not good because a 2-putt from 60 feet is a good outcome, and a 2-putt from 1 foot is terrible. But they both count as 2 putts. So counting putts doesn't take into account where did you start. Did you start 60 feet away or 1 feet away? The whole idea behind strokes gained putting is to take into account where did the putt start, because that's a measure of putt difficulty. And when you have millions of data points, you get this really smooth curve which shows how does the average number of putts to complete a hole vary as a function of the initial putt length. So from 33 feet, the PGA Tour average is 2 putts. So they'll one putt as often as they 3-putt from 33 feet. From 8 feet, the PGA Tour average is 1.5 putts. So they rarely 3-putt and they 1-putt about the same rate as they 2-putt. So if the tour average from 33 feet is 2 putts, a 1-putt from 33 feet gains a stroke on the field. A 1-putt from 8 feet gains a half stroke on the field. That's all it is. It's subtracting 2 numbers. You take how many putts versus this baseline, which is the tour average. It's amazing how much pressure you can get from an idea which involves subtracting 2 numbers. It's not very hard at all. But you put all the data into this analytical method, and you come up with who were the best putters from 2004 to 2012. And you take a look at this list, and I think you'll agree that these are some of the best putters on the planet. Luke Donald, Brad Faxon, Tiger Woods are right up there. Okay. So the PGA Tour rolled out strokes gained putting in 2011, but you can use the same idea for putts off the green. So here's Jason Day, who just won at the match play a week ago. And I want to show you how he played the 11th hole at Kapalua a few years back. So this is a par 4. Starting from the tee, it's 394 yards. And you can see where he put his tee shot there. He was 278 yards in the fairway after the shot. So just a show of hands, was this a better than average tee shot for a PGA Tour pro? How about worse than average?
Yes.
Okay. The second shot he put into the sand 62 yards away. How many say it's better than average? Okay. How many say it's worse than average? Okay. 62 yards in the sand, he puts to 17 feet on the green. Better or worse than average? Better than average?
Much better.
Much better, okay. And then he holes out from 17 feet. Of course, it's better than average. All strokes gained does is it quantifies this intuition. And if you take the average number of strokes at the beginning of the shot, which is 4 from the tee shot, he put it into a spot in the fairway where the PGA Tour average was 3.7. So he got 0.3 strokes closer to the hole, but he took 1 stroke to do it. So he lost 0.7 strokes to the field. And so you can see with this strokes gain analysis, negative, he lost 0.7, then he lost 0.5, then he gained 0.4, and he gained 0.8. So he had 2 below average shots and 2 above average shots, and he ended up with a par, which is about even with the field. So this is how shot length works, and this is the video from from his tee shot here.
Right. He topped it.
It's one of mine, Nick.
Wow.
That's amazing.
This is like,
Hasn't missed a shot.
what on earth? That he's laughing his head off.
Now in strokes gained attitude, he gains 2 full strokes. Okay, because that's a new one we're working on right now.
So every golfer that I play with, when they hit a shot like that, their reaction is, and I just love it. You saw his reaction. He just smiled. He goes, it was so unusual, I can live with that. Okay. So this is how it works. And these are the top 10 golfers from 2004 to 2012 by the strokes gained measure. And what you can do is you can break down the game. The average of these top 10 golfers gain 1.7 strokes per round on the field. And where did they gain their strokes? Well, 0.3 was from driving, 0.7 was from approach shots. It's iron play or hybrids outside of 100 yards. The short game gained 0.4 and the putting gained 0.2. So basically 2/3 of the strokes that they gained was from shots outside of 100 yards, 1/3 was from inside of 100 yards, And if you just look at putting, putting accounted for about 15% of the scoring differences between the top 10 golfers in the world and the average PGA Tour pro. So I think it's pretty clear that you don't drive for show and putt for dough. It really is the long game that's important, and there you can see a lot of numbers in the table, how it breaks down, how much better Tiger Woods is even than the other 9 in this group, and where he gets most of his gain from. So I'll let Sean take it over from here, and this is Tiger Woods' career at a glance.
And I think what's interesting for me as a coach, my attraction to Mark's information a couple of years ago, because this is all Mark's stuff. I've had nothing to do with the analytics except kind of bringing a face and getting it out there and its importance. And it goes back quite a few years as looking at PGA Tour stats from ShotLink. Now, ShotLink compiles all these stats. So my question was always, I watch my guys play all the time, so when I see that one of them averaged 293 yards off the tee, they're only measuring one hole on the front and one hole on the back, where they're hitting 14 tee shots. So that's not that accurate. That could be both 3 woods. But then starting to look at things where, I think if you take the top 10 ball strikers in the world under the strokes gain platform, they average 13th in the world. If you take the top 10 putters in the world, they average around 60. So, so much of what we believe has just been handed down through nostalgia and what have you. So for me, using this, it provides me with an ability to look at, in looking at the player, it's kind of interesting from 2003 to 2009, Tiger is always discussed as a bad driver of the ball. But if you look at those statistics right there, that's really not that poor. And even in 2013 and 2012, if you're number 1 in iron play, you can't really drive it that terribly. So what it does, it provides me with a platform to show Justin Rose, who wasn't happy about his wedge game, that under strokes gain 100 yards in, he's number 1 on the PGA Tour. And so often what happens to athletes, because they're always in the thick of it, they start telling themselves stories. Well, over time that manifests. So this has a very mental aspect to it as well. So he was so shocked and so surprised to see that he was number 1 in short game, which is 100 yards in. His own self kind of image of his short game was that it wasn't that good. So the stats aren't only helping me to set up practice differently and hitting, many 6 irons and 5 irons and 4 irons and 3 irons and 3 woods and drivers. From 30 yards in, it roughly takes a professional on the PGA Tour 2.52 strokes to get the ball in the hole. From 110, it takes him 2.71. And just about every week you go on the PGA Tour, you'll see people practicing 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. It's basically a massive waste of time. I mean, if you're looking at like a 0.19 increase, you're spending 2 hours. You see what I'm saying? So it's also showed us, as far as driving goes, that distance is far more a measure of success than accuracy. Now, that may not be every week. That's probably not true at the US Open. It's not true at certain events. But overall, as a platform, getting guys to, if I was to be able to help hunters swing at 5 miles an hour faster or get them to hit 5% more fairways, gross earnings will increase more so from that increase in distance of 15 yards. So it's just it's 2014, and people spend, $700 on a driver. So it's funny when you come from it from a science standpoint, like I've tried to. Now, I'm also very old school in how I teach, because coaching is coaching. Players don't have to be smarter to be better ultimately. But being able to utilize this, when I first saw it, I was excited, and I'd show it to businessmen, and they're like, "You've only just started doing this?" So they're so shocked, right? But that's what we're trying to, accomplish.
So Tiger, who's viewed as the best clutch putter of all time, one of the many reasons for that is a tournament like this. The 2008 Arnold Palmer, he won on the last stroke. How many people remember this? It's been
Twice.
Played twice, and then the next year as well. But
Yes, he did that to Sean O'Hare both times and cost me a lot of money, actually. So, and I remember watching the second time, and he's up top of the hill, and I'm like, all right, I think, And then I just said, what are you even watching this for? And I turned around and walked to the parking lot. About 100 yards into my walk, I hear this giant ovation. I go, exactly, I didn't want to see that.
So it's hello Ben Hogan because it was like he won the 5th or 6th tournament at the Row at that point, and people look at this as the best clutch putter of all time. That was the only putt over 20 feet that he sunk in the tournament.
Right. A lot of it's so nostalgic, right? So when you start looking at it like that, this was actually the first time
Back the other way, but I think it will go right.
Well, he jinxed him with that stat. Yep.
But though, I mean,
Yes,
it was a
it's
kind
true.
like Roger said that. Oh, wow! Are you kidding? Well,
So that was earlier in the same tournament. He had a 3-putt from inside of 7 feet. People don't remember that one so well.
I do because I was so shocked. And then the stat came up at home was his first 3-putt in like 400 holes, right? Yeah. So I was thinking at that point, me and Sean had a chance, but of course not.
So even in this tournament, which is remembered for his clutch putting, he gained about 2/3 of his strokes on the field from his long game, his shots outside of 100 yards. And his putting, he obviously did incredibly well, but that accounted for about 1/3 of his strokes gained on the field.
And the interesting thing too, from a television standpoint, is the analysts are there to hopefully educate. If they're looking at these stats, so people have been calling for my head for like 3 years with working with Tiger, but he gained 2.7 or 2.8 strokes on the field last year with his iron play, hence the reason that he won 5 tournaments. So if you look at it, well, he used to hit 72% of his greens in regulation. Last year he hit 68.23. That's not really where you have to look. You still have to look and go, okay, why is he doing what he's doing? So it's a fantastic way to look at the game.
So one of the fun things for me is just getting to hang around with Sean and some of these golfers. And I got a call from David Orr, who is helping Justin Rose out with his putting, and this was in March of last year after the first round of the Bay Hill, and he calls me out, hey Mark, did you see what happened in the tournament today? And I wasn't following nearly as closely as he was, but Justin Rose gained 6 strokes in that one round on his putting. If you just count putts, he took 25 putts that round. He was tied for 4th out of 132 golfers just in that round. So that's like a 1 out of 25 or 1 out of 30 sort of putting performance. And David Orr didn't believe that. So he called me and said, well, how good was that putting round really? And I said, well, it's off the charts. I have to compute some more numbers here because I know it's better than 1 in 1,000, but it was actually better than 3 in 10,000. It was better than 99.97% of rounds on the PGA Tour. So
Yikes.
it was that phenomenal of a putting round, and it was fun before the U.S. Open at Marion when we were walking around, and I was telling this story to Sean. He goes, tell Justin here because he.
Is that you? Or?
I think that's me. Okay. I don't know. He should know that. But one of the things that you can do with the stats that Sean was saying in terms of Justin's short game is it's not just where are you weak, but it's also letting people know where are you strong and how much potential he has as a putter. And he didn't know how good his short game was. But it's really amazing. This is just such a phenomenal putting round that he had there. And of course.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at probability, players can fall into a slump. When they really start to struggle is when they actually believe they're in a slump. So if you look at the probability of it, a world-class player can have 3 poor weeks in a row, which is 12 rounds. But if you let them manifest it and realize this is just simple math, like this will occur at some point. Like you're going to have a poor stretch. So rather than trying to fix them when they're going through that stretch, you're just in the stretch of acceptance, knowing that if you just keep putting one foot or the other, at some point you're going to come out on the other side.
So there's a lot more in this book besides strokes gained putting, but one of the things I think the data and the ShotLink data in this way of analysis clearly shows is that the long game is the separator between the best tour pros and between average tour pros. It really is the key to Tiger's success. He's Tiger Woods because he's great at everything. That's why he's Tiger Woods. You take a look at these numbers, he's great all the way throughout. That's why he's a stroke better than even the next person on the list, which is just phenomenal. There's just so many ways you can say how good Tiger Woods is, but if you had to point to one thing, it would be his long approach shots that really separate him. And you take a look at the people that Sean Foley coaches, and one of the things that they have in common, Hunter Mahan, Justin Rose, Tiger Woods, they all hit these shots great, and you can see in there.
And even Westwood last year.
And Lee Westwood for sure.
So it's if you look at the stat, if you look at strokes gained, then it's that way. It's very fascinating. But here's the thing, right? My dad's an 8 handicap, and he's a very good chipper and putter, like very good. So he can almost probably, be very close in an up and down competition with my players. As soon as they get to 125 yards, he's got no chance. At 170 yards, he has less chance. At 250 yards, he doesn't have a hope. So when people say to me, what's the difference between a good college player and a PGA Tour player? It's from about 175 to 320 yards, and with evidence from obviously his mind.
Anyway, but there's a lot more in the book besides this, but we can open up for questions now if you have any questions.
Yes.
You touched on a little bit, but can you talk a little more about how your stats inform the way that you set up practice? And are you focusing on 175 out?
I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but I guess myself, I've always been such a swing geek that it was kind of my theory as a kid when I was struggling, that if I practiced with my 2-iron, without any instruction, and just sat there until I was able to do it, that I would have a better swing, because a 2-iron is very difficult to hit. So I guess that, being a range rat and not spending a lot of time on the putting green with my players, we just hit a lot of 6-irons and 5-irons. And because someone says, well, I got to practice with my 8-iron because that's a scoring club. So 8-iron roughly goes 165 for my guys. At 165, their proximity to the hole is probably 28 feet. So they're going to 3-putt as much as they 1-putt. So it's not a scoring club. The 3-iron now is a scoring club. But it's just if you see it differently. So yeah, 40 to 110 yards we're never practicing that. A player's 100th on the PGA Tour makes 98.7% of his putts from 4 feet. The guy who's number 1 makes 100%. So there's not a lot there. So it's kind of looking at it that way, and then trying to continue to work on all parts, but allotting it as of time.
Sean, how challenging is it for guys when they come and start working with you or considering working with you as their swing coach, for them to buy into a system that goes pretty much head over heels from what they've been told or what they perceive probably since the day they picked up a club?
Well, I think the good thing is so often, like as we get to, around the age that we're at, we've already seen that illusion 10 times in other parts of our life. So when they sit there and see it, and then you talk about certain things. So Brad Faxon, maybe the greatest putter who's ever lived. I think he won 8 times on tour. It's easy to have 26 putts a day when you miss 9 greens in regulation. So when you start looking at it, kind of that way, these have just, first of all, the guys are going to have to be open enough about it. But typically when I start with someone, they're at the bottom of their career, not the top. So they're fairly open to trying to understand. And then what I'm trying to do so we don't create, illogical fictions in our mind, which we all do anyways, is trying to keep it as nonfiction and as logical as possible, is look, guys, all the answers are in here. It's not because your right elbow's behind you. It's got nothing to do with that. So it actually gets me almost away from technique to an extent. And they're saying, well, you know, I've not been driving the ball well. And then you look at that, their idea is because they've only been hitting 8 fairways a day. But how many times they hit it in the intermediate or hit one 330 that's just in the rough? To hit a ball straight 330 yards is almost a miracle of engineering just because of collision aspects of gear effect of the club. So, you know, do you lay up with a 5-wood into the middle of fairway and leave yourself 200? Or do you hit it 330 in the rough and come in with a pitching wedge where the ball's going to land about 12 degrees steeper, spin 2,000 more, the ball's going to spin 2,000 more. So the idea is, well, from the fairway, I'm going to get it closer to the hole. No one's hitting 6-iron 10 times closer from 200 yards than they are wedge out of a rough. It's just not happening. The proximity is actually massively closer with the wedge out of the rough, especially today. The rough on the PGA Tour is not what it once was, you know?
Sorry, one last question.
So it seems like you guys identified, you know, the longer shots are the ones that you have the greater opportunity of gaining strokes. As you sort of teach players to recognize that, do you think it'll shift? Do you think that the players will get good enough at the longer shots that it's only going to be marginally better? Do you think it'll come back closer to the green?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
One of the interesting things when you take a look at this is that there's more than one way to be one of the best players on tour. And take a look at Luke Donald, and he is one of the best putters, but he's also one of the best wedge players, and he has a really good approach game. His weakness is more in his driving, but that is his only weakness. You take a look at Vijay Singh and Ernie Els and Sergio Garcia and Adam Scott, and one of the things that stands out there is they're not the best putters in the world, but they are winning more tournaments than other people. Golf is such a hard game that I can't foresee a day when it's easy enough that these guys are all going to be hitting 330-yard drives down the middle of the fairway, and then they're going to be hitting an iron shot to 5 feet, and then they're saying,
we just have a brain, and we're emotional, and if anything, we may physically improve, but I think, you know, probably from a mental and emotional intelligence standpoint, we haven't been much different for eons as human beings, right? I mean, we still have like genocide and poverty, so we're obviously not moving into a higher level of consciousness, right? I'm always going to get into some crazy tangent, but even VJ, right? It says 193rd in strokes gained putting. Well, if you look at the rest of that stat, okay, so how many strokes did he lose to the field because of how terrible his putting is, right?
0.2.
0.2, so if he keeps looking at 193, you don't think he's going to create like that he's a really bad putter. So when you look and you say, well, look, mate, you know what, you're making up everywhere else, you're still gaining 1.6, what leaves you at this point. You look at Sergio, and then you look at Stricker, and you look at his driving, he's at 198. Well, that's not necessarily true of the last couple years, obviously, right? But regardless, you know, is hitting it like Steve Stricker off the tee or Luke Donald off the tee really holding them back? So when we look at it that, you know, the guys hit 8 fairways, if he's hit it in the intermediate 5 times, that's really good driving. So it's more proximity from the middle of the fairway than that. So it's just a great way to get them to stop with the stories and then, you know, allocate where we need to do it. And then for me, teaching juniors and the kids I work with, that's a labor of love. I look at this strictly as business. So this is very much part of the business of coaching. You know, we've been fortunate, I think, in the past to sometimes luck our way into success, but this is really defining, you know, why it happens. And then it helps you keep a job when, you know, the stats aren't what they seem, and you show them that, and they go, wow, I had no idea. So it's, you know, to look at Tiger over his career with his approach shots, look at Jack Nicklaus with his approach shots, look at Annika Sorenstam with her approach shot. They all significantly those 3 had significantly the ability to roof long irons, to hit them straight up in the sky, all 3 of them. And I think that is really what has obviously separated them. Obviously, his short game and his putting stats are pretty good as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean and Mark.